My name is Michael, and I want to share with you the story of how my marriage and family were destroyed because of my ex-wife's personal hygiene habits. Linda Thompson, my ex-wife, and I met for the first time on a blind date organized by mutual acquaintances. Linda, who had just graduated from college, got a position at Creative Vision Advertising thanks to a marketing management diploma, which allowed her to get into the junior account manager program. Meanwhile, I had just gotten a job at Premier Media Solutions and was new to Los Angeles, having set up a double date with our colleague James and his girlfriend Rachel. Linda and I spent an evening that could not be called ordinary. While most first dates are filled with anticipation and excitement, our evening was different from the very beginning. It was obvious that physical intimacy was not on the agenda as Linda behaved warily, hiding her figure under layers of clothing. Despite the lack of a romantic spark, our conversation turned to our professional aspirations and common origins. Both of us, coming from humble families in small towns, harbored ambitions for the future. I aspired to become an entrepreneur and use my knowledge of media strategy to run a business effectively. Linda, on the contrary, aspired to a stable career in the advertising sphere with breaks from motherhood. Although our first meeting did not bring the passion I had hoped for, I continued to hope that over time there would be intimacy between us. Where our evening ended with a polite exchange of opinions and hugs devoid of fervor, I reflected on it, grateful for the company and conversation she had given me. The following week, James jokingly congratulated me, mistakenly believing that I had a good date night. Linda couldn't help but sing the praises of Rachel, leaving my dear friend with an indelible impression, prompting Rachel to send a message for me to call her personally. It was like we were back in our school days. Although the evening was pleasant, I had no idea what an impact it had. Maybe it's time to contact her and repair the relationship. As our relationship developed over the following months, I was amazed at the transformation that was hidden under Linda's modest outfit, revealing her stunning figure. She radiated beauty with curves that captivated me. Her attractiveness was irresistible, as was what attracted us to each other. Overcoming the difficulties of our nascent romance, we created a deep bond based on mutual respect, trust, and affection. Our love blossomed into marriage and the birth of two daughters, Emma and Sophia. Our intimacy was bright and intense, both before and after starting a family. While we settled into the rhythm of home life, my career at Premier Media Solutions was flourishing. Mr. Peterson noticed my potential and encouraged me to realize my entrepreneurial ambitions. His mentoring and guidance paved the way for my professional growth and culminated at that crucial moment when he advised me to consider opening my own practice before the upcoming sale of the company. Grateful for his support and understanding, I was shocked by his confidence in my abilities and the opportunities that opened up before me. Combining gratitude and determination, I entered a new chapter ready to realize my entrepreneurial dreams and pave a path that matched my aspirations. Over the weekend, Linda and I talked endlessly about our future. Linda urged me not to settle for a role in a new company, but to strive for advancement in the corporate structure. She emphasized the financial stability that could be achieved by climbing the career ladder in a large advertising agency. But I expressed my doubts, fearing that the monotony of reports and presentations would not bring me satisfaction in the long run. Having decided to realize my entrepreneurial dreams, I outlined my concept to Linda, detailing my plan to create a home practice before moving to an official office. Despite her concerns about the risks, I expressed my belief that the time to take a leap of faith is now or never. Although Linda expressed her concerns, she eventually gave in, warning that I had to ensure the success of my venture without relying on her financial support. Acknowledging her skepticism, I assured her of my willingness to share household expenses and maintain financial stability. Despite the tensions between us, I decided to continue working on my business plans, determined to prove the viability of my entrepreneurial endeavors. Despite Linda's initial doubts, my dedication and hard work eventually paid off, leading to financial success and a change in the business model towards consulting functions rather than simple campaign management. When my income exceeded Linda's, I redirected it to expand my startup, maintaining a balance between personal income and reinvestment. Accepting the challenges and opportunities that came my way, I overcame the complexities of entrepreneurship, driven by a passion for consulting on profitable deals and creating a thriving business. Although this path was fraught with uncertainty and setbacks, my perseverance and strategic investments paved the way for a successful enterprise and financial independence. In order to align my interests with the success of the client, I developed a strategy according to which I refused or reduced the consultation fee in exchange for a share of the profit, ranging from 5% to 15%. By offering such an innovative approach, clients gained access to my experience and knowledge while reducing the burden of startup capital. This mutually beneficial agreement allowed clients to utilize my expertise and recommendations without the restrictions associated with high initial costs, contributing to the development of a productive partnership. As an investor in these enterprises, auditing became a difficult task, but the potential for increasing the value of the company far outweighed the losses from paying for accounting services. Clients had the opportunity to buy out my share according to a predetermined market value formula, which provided flexibility and transparency in our cooperation. But Linda didn't like this investment strategy, and I had to keep her in the dark about my investments in startups to avoid conflict. Although the income of my consulting firm did not reflect the growth of my net worth due to these investments, this decision turned out to be useful because I created a team of qualified specialists which allowed me to spend more time with children. Despite the busy campaign seasons, I prioritized attending my children's performances and events, taking on parenting responsibilities alone against the backdrop of Linda's career rise to executive vice president at the agency and her desire to purchase an elite house. This conflicted with my cautious approach. Despite her doubts, Linda impulsively signed a contract to buy a new apartment, leaving me disappointed but resigned to this decision. Meanwhile, her disparaging remarks about my profession and condescending attitude towards my consulting firm strained our relationship, leading to growing tensions at home. Sitting and not noticing my wife, I realized that I did not take part in such social events as agency holiday parties, client meetings, or summer retreats. Although I didn't really like such events, I couldn't help but feel that Linda preferred to separate her professional and personal life. Feeling the growing disunity, I realized that it was time to address the state of our relationship. On Saturday afternoon, I approached Linda in the living room, hoping to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Meeting with indifference, she brushed aside my concerns, asking me to postpone the conversation. Not calming down, I persistently asked her to set aside only 15 minutes for the conversation. When she went about her business, I decided to bring up the subject later, using her dismissive behavior as a prime example of how I feel left out. Despite my attempts to start a meaningful dialogue after the children went to bed, Linda's fatigue interrupted our conversation. The next morning, as our family was getting ready for the Sunday routine, I took a moment to pay attention to the growing distance between us. Linda reacted furiously to this, dismissing my concerns and ignoring the urgency of our conversation. Throughout the day, I waited for the right moment to return to this conversation and express my concern about our marriage and the emotional distance that had arisen between us. "Is there something you want to talk about?" I asked, noticing her sudden departure from the table. Without saying a word, she put the plate away and left the house, leaving behind an anxious silence. Reflecting on this brief exchange, I was surprised by the brevity of our conversation. My daughters, visibly shaken by the tension, expressed their concern and asked if we were on the verge of divorce. Smiling encouragingly, I assured them that disagreements are a natural part of a relationship, emphasizing our abiding love for each other and for them. While I was tidying up the kitchen and getting ready for bed, the events of that evening did not leave my mind. As a result, when I went to bed, I found myself alone, and there was a prolonged tension between us. Late at night, she came into the bedroom, undressed, and got into bed next to me. Hugging me, she expressed her desire to treat me with the respect I deserve, and this gesture momentarily relieved the tension between us. In the following years, her career developed, and eventually she took the position of vice president of creative compliance at the agency. Her meticulous approach to compliance and management was in stark contrast to my more relaxed philosophy, which periodically led to discord in our family relationships. She didn't know that my investments, although legitimate, were likely to cause concern given her strict views on regulation. The realization of this fact struck me like lightning. She arrived home one evening without her engagement ring, prompting an uneasy feeling in me. Sensing her hostile attitude, I decided to remain silent and watch. After a quick glance in her direction, I noticed she had retired to the bedroom and put on unfamiliar underwear, different from her usual attire. There was a tense atmosphere of unspoken questions as she avoided my gaze while packing her things. When I tried to bring up the subject, she abruptly dismissed my concerns, stating her plans for the evening were no different from any other Tuesday. Frustrated by the lack of communication, I went to the garage to gather tools for household chores in her absence. While reaching into the sink siphon, I came across an unexpected find, a box with douching devices. This discovery confused me and raised questions about her secretive actions and unexplained needs. Although she often complained of gastrointestinal problems, the presence of these items made me anxious. Unaware of the consequences, I decided to investigate further. I marked the place where the box was found with a pencil and documented its contents for future reference. This disturbing discovery left me with a sense of foreboding, prompting a silent vow to solve the unfolding mystery in my own home. I checked later to see if she returned the kit to the box as I had found it. She returned home around midnight, undressed, closed the bathroom door, and began taking a shower. I pretended to be asleep, but my pounding heart would have given me away if she touched my chest. When she finally climbed into bed, I feigned just waking up and heard her softly giggle. The next morning, unable to sleep, I woke early and quietly closed the bathroom door behind me to inspect the brown box. I noticed the tip of the syringe was still wet, and the box was slightly out of place. Carefully, I collected her underwear in a Ziploc bag to check for biological substances. Having gone through previous divorce proceedings and property evaluations, I knew what awaited me. Linda would keep the house until the girls went to college, and I would pay alimony, seeing them less often. If my investments hadn't been accounted for, I wouldn't have had to pay Linda alimony. Refusing to finance a house where she could indulge in extramarital affairs while neglecting our girls was unacceptable. With gathered information, I began developing a strategy to focus on maintaining custody of my daughters. Making money wasn't the issue. Proving my worth as a father was crucial. Now I had to demonstrate that she was an unfit mother. Linda's perfectionism and high expectations often led to her becoming violent when things went wrong. I planned to use her toxic behavior to drive a wedge between her and the children, ensuring they would prefer to stay with me after the divorce. As a small act of rebellion against her disdain for tardiness, I quietly turned off her alarm clock after a late, eventful night, hoping she would oversleep. The children came for breakfast, asking where Mom was. I explained she had gone to bed late and would likely oversleep, as she enjoyed sleeping in when she could. I monitored her late-night phone conversations and silenced her video playlist, hoping her phone battery would die before she woke for an important Wednesday morning meeting with clients. An hour later, I heard a scream with my name. Obviously, it was my fault that she overslept after spending the night with someone else. I used her outburst as an opportunity to escape to the garage. I noticed one of the tires on her BMW was leaking air, causing the dashboard warning light to illuminate. She couldn't stand such warnings obstructing her view. Frantically, she rushed around the house trying to gather her things while simultaneously scolding Emma and Sophia. Meanwhile, in the garage, I tampered with the door mechanism so it wouldn't open as expected. When she pressed the button, the door didn't budge, and she crashed into it, damaging the panels. The three of us watched as she struggled in the car, desperately hitting the steering wheel before driving away, nearly colliding with the mailbox. I chuckled at the havoc I had caused, wondering how she would manage with a dead cell phone when she tried to call the office. I reassured the girls that she would feel better once she returned home and reminded them that she still loved them even if she was upset with me. We shared a laugh, and I set the alarm in our bedroom to the loudest mode before heading to work. Unlike my wife, I arrived at work quickly and in a good mood, whistling as I entered. However, my peaceful morning was interrupted when my phone vibrated loudly and almost fell off the table. Well, it's probably my dear wife, I thought. Good morning, my dear, I managed to say before a barrage of foul language erupted from the phone. A shrill voice demanded, "You have to come here and fix my tire. I almost died driving this dangerous car. If you'd let me take the Audi, we wouldn't have this problem." "Fix it," I said casually. "You have AAA insurance. Just call them, and they'll take care of everything." "Go to hell," was her furious reply. Since my morning had gone so smoothly, I informed my assistant that I had a few errands to run and would be back after lunch. First, I stopped at a security system store and bought some small cameras for the house and a hidden voice recorder to place in her purse. I needed to know my enemy's moves. Next, I returned home and installed cameras in the living room and our bedroom. I made the garage panels functional again, though they weren't pretty. They loudly announced that someone had backed into us, so all the neighbors could see and chuckle. Back at work, I reviewed all my personal banking and investment files. We only had one credit card in common, which I promptly canceled. The joint bank account was left open for household needs, with a reminder to transfer half of my paycheck into it every payday. I arrived home before Linda and began cooking dinner. When I heard the garage door creak and groan open, Linda stormed in like the FBI, kicking down a door, startling both girls at the kitchen table. "The bitch," she menacingly declared. "I've never had such a shitty day. I'm going upstairs to soak in my bathtub." The girls and I quietly finished dinner, whispering like little conspirators. I approached her later to ask if she wanted dinner, and she threw a bar of soap at me, growling, "If I wanted dinner, I would have told you. Now leave me alone." It was the perfect opportunity to discreetly slip the recorder into her purse. I went downstairs and fell asleep on the living room couch, preferring not to be in bed with her when her alarm blared at full volume the next morning. The explosion of the latest rap song from the alarm clock, followed by Linda's shrill yell, tore through the morning. The screams of two frightened children were not unlike the early morning drills of a U.S. Marine sergeant. While Linda fussed in the bathroom, I seized the opportunity to sneak into the garage and smear the seat of her car with dark brown grease from my lawnmower. I imagined the embarrassment she would feel if others mistook the lubricant for something more unsightly. This time, it was literal, not figurative. Linda vented as much rage and bile as she had the night before, unaware of my latest sabotage. I also stained the skirt she had worn the previous day, hoping to deflect suspicion. Her assistant Michelle, who was married to my friend, informed me that Linda had noticed the stained skirt. She warned me that Hurricane Linda was coming and that everyone should be ready. In the days that followed, I refrained from further torment, but various incidents began to occur. One of her diamond earrings went missing, an inexplicable red wine stain appeared on her dress, and the lining of her favorite shoes began to peel off. Having access to her password book, I blocked her from logging into several frequently visited sites. Additionally, whenever she got behind the wheel of her BMW, a ball bearing rolled across the car door every time she turned or braked, compounding her frustration. The latest ordeal occurred on Tuesday evening when she was returning home from work, preparing to attend a bachelorette party without informing anyone. She locked herself in the bathroom to change clothes. Everything was exactly the same as the previous Tuesday, only this time I was tracking her movements using her mobile phone's locator. Following her digital trail, I discovered that she had visited the Ocean Grill and then Midnight Lounge dance bar. I wasn't concerned about what she was doing at the club, but who she left with. When she exited Midnight Lounge on the arm of a man, I followed them unnoticed to a nearby motel. They entered a room with an external entrance, planning to stay for several hours. I parked in the lot, observing their actions and noting every detail. Under the cover of darkness, I lowered the front driver's side wheel just enough to trigger a low-pressure warning on the dashboard. Noticing a nearby truck, I smeared grease on its windshield, expecting the mess to worsen when the wipers were activated the next day. I eagerly anticipated listening to the recorder hidden in her purse, knowing it contained the crucial information I sought. My plan was half realized. After midnight, she entered the bedroom, undressed, and went to the bathroom, slamming the door with force. It was probably time for her to take a shower. That night, she ignored the alarm clock in the phone, adding an element of randomness to the situation. A few hours later, when she was snoring softly, I retrieved the recorder from her purse, transferred the recording to my laptop, recharged it, and returned it. The next morning, when Linda and the girls were not at home, I listened to the recording. Despite the noisy background from the dinner in the club, the recorder effectively captured everything that happened in the motel. I discovered that her boyfriend's name was Derek and learned about their regular Tuesday dates and bi-weekly meetings at the Renaissance Hotel during business hours. It turned out that Linda had booked a room at the Renaissance where they indulged in luxury paid for with their corporate cards. They laughed about the unwitting involvement of the conservative agency president who used the proximity of the agency to meet with employees from other cities. "What are you planning? Divorce your media consultant husband?" Derek asked. "Right after Sophia leaves for college. I love my girls, but I don't want to spend my best years playing football with them. He's a great father, and I'm grateful to him for that. It gives me more time to be here with you. I don't know why, but I just can't be around him anymore. I've tried to help him succeed, but he seems content to be an ordinary guy with no ambitions." "He's just wasting his life," Linda replied. "If you're unhappy with him, why not get a divorce right now?" Derek suggested. "Make him pay child support and spend more time with me," she giggled and replied. "If I divorce him and get alimony, I'll still have to pay for childcare, a maid, and a cook. Right now, he's doing it all for free and putting money into our joint account. I can save on household expenses and put part of my salary where you won't find it during the divorce." "What about you? What are you doing with your cold wife?" she asked. "It's already decided," he replied. "In 3 years, the marriage contract expires, and I'll receive 50% of her portfolio of shares worth millions. The timing couldn't be better, just when Sophia goes to college." After listening to their conversation, I was shocked by their selfishness and deception. They deserve each other, I thought. They will face difficulties because they cheated on each other, both emotionally and financially. Despite their precautions, their disrespectful behavior became obvious to me and the girls. As expected, traces of biological substances were found on the underwear, giving me the evidence necessary to start the divorce process. I instructed my lawyer David Foster to seek full custody of the girls, given my central role in their lives. It seemed unlikely that the girls would want to maintain a relationship with their mother after witnessing her actions. David admitted that it would not be easy but agreed to proceed. I proposed a plan to divide the house as part of the divorce agreement. We agreed to split the income from the house in half when both girls leave for college. Each of us would keep our own investments and pension funds. Since our taxable income is the same, neither of us would pay alimony. Instead, she would regularly pay child support, including college tuition. Although we saved money for tuition, housing, books, and meals, we had not provided for the costs of extracurricular activities. After becoming a full-time vice president, Linda joined the agency's deferred compensation program. I left her account untouched, potentially useful for partner investments. I planned to use her deferred compensation during the divorce process. In the run-up to the divorce, I started moving valuables into storage and making daily backups of data on my computer's external hard drive. I was trying to keep the house, not knowing how Linda would react to the subpoena. On the advice of my lawyer, I hired a private investigator to find out the identity and place of work of Derek. To speed up the search, I shared the information I had about his car's license plate. Every year, at the end of the third quarter, the agency began planning the budget for the next year. Employees filled out questionnaires, and each department analyzed its work and budget. The culmination of the process was a formal dinner with dancing at the Renaissance Hotel for senior management and their spouses, many of whom had booked rooms at the hotel. Linda mentioned this event many years ago. By the time she became a member of this exclusive group, I was considered unworthy. She often reminded me of this event, suggesting that my success could ensure my participation next year. Although she thought it motivated me, I was already tired of these people. Almost daily, I searched her closets and drawers for new evidence of her infidelity. A week before the meeting, I came across a new shoe box hidden in the far corner of her closet. My search always started in the depths of cupboards and drawers. Inside was a pair of stylish Jimmy Choo evening shoes worth over $1,000 and not a single receipt. On the eve of the event, I thought about how to sabotage this luxury purchase. The idea came to mind to exchange the Choo shoes for cheap shoes or Crocs. Instead, I carefully adjusted the heel of the shoes, turning it slightly in a vise, and then carefully wrapped and returned it to its original place. After discovering her brown box, I had learned to handle fragile objects. The day before the event, the detective asked me to be present in his office, informing me that her lover was Derek Miller, a senior account director at her workplace. This exposure could have serious consequences for their careers, given their roles and the company's policy prohibiting intimate relationships between employees. I requested video footage from the senior management meeting at the Renaissance Hotel, where cameras captured Linda strolling and dancing. We both found humor in these shots when Linda tripped over the modified shoe heel, causing chaos at the event. The detective and I had a laugh, and he got paid for his services. The video would be sent to America's Funniest Videos program as soon as Linda gave permission. Linda and Derek went to their room for the night, unaware that a camera was installed under the door, recording their actions. Thanks to technology, we have concrete evidence to support our version. Although Linda returned home the next day, she remained out of sight until late Sunday morning. From a spiritual point of view, she should have attended church that morning, but instead, she stayed at home. Linda usually returned from work on Wednesday afternoon feeling exhausted, most likely due to late classes on Tuesday evening. This Wednesday, I decided to make fun of her by changing the hot water in the bathroom. When she greeted me on her way to the bathroom, I waited for her to adjust the temperature of the water and only then began to act. Knowing that the water lines in our house are separate, each connected to a collector that regulates the flow of water, I quickly turned off the hot water in the bathroom, allowing the tub to be filled only with cold water. As soon as I heard that the water had stopped, I immediately restored the hot water supply. When my wife went into the cool tub, in which the water was slippery because of the bubbles, there was a terrifying sound. She tried to get to her feet, grabbing at anything to get out of the cold water. When I heard her suffering, I rushed to help, but she accidentally tore a towel rack off the wall in her frantic attempt to escape the cold. Suppressing the urge to laugh, I pulled out the rack, enduring her swearing and looking wet. Both girls, alarmed by the commotion, entered the bathroom and saw that their mother was in trouble. Accusing them of using up all the hot water, Linda attacked her daughters and then ran into the bedroom to get dressed. The girls burst into tears and rushed to their mother to explain that they did not use the hot water, but Linda waved their words away sharply, ordering them to get out of sight. They ran away in tears, leaving me confused about her sudden outburst towards them. Then she turned her attention to me, demanding that I fix the tub. She scolded me, doubting my ability to do even simple housework. Leading her to the tub, I turned on the hot water again, forcing her to react to the sudden warmth. Splashing some water on her hand, I calmly reminded her that there really is hot water here. After a moment of silence, I decided to take the girls to dinner, ignoring the cooked food. Their tears made me stop the car and comfort them by expressing my regret over the situation. I expressed confidence in the value of the girls and apologized for their mother's behavior, acknowledging my role in allowing such an incident. This seemed to reassure them, emphasizing the importance of protecting against Linda's unstable behavior. When I got home, I left the kitchen as it was and settled on the couch in the living room. In the dimness of the night, I was overcome by a feeling of anxiety. Then Linda appeared, standing silently in front of me. Unable to find the right words, I listened as she admitted her mistake in attacking the girls and talked about her recent difficulties and disappointments. She shared her desire to regain control of her life, after which she retired upstairs. It seemed like she just needed to express her feelings. The following week, I received an unexpected gift from one of my investment partners, a two-bedroom apartment in Winter Park, Colorado. A friend contacted me to offer the opportunity to rent a two-bedroom apartment in Winter Park at half price, as it was vacated at the last moment. The timing was perfect, between Christmas and New Year. The girls had not yet recovered from their mother's harsh words, but they immediately brightened up when I suggested spending a week skiing in Winter Park. Their enthusiastic reaction prompted me to book plane tickets for the four of us, to give Linda one last chance to join us as a family. That evening, when Linda was getting ready for dinner, I asked Emma to invite her on the ski trip. Emma willingly shared the news about the rented apartment and passed on the invitation, but Linda only waved it off, citing duties at the agency at the end of the year. Disappointed by her refusal and unconvincing explanation, I realized that Linda's role in ensuring compliance had nothing to do with the agency's financial statements. It dawned on me that Linda saw this as an opportunity to spend time with Derek while we were away. The following week, my private investigator connected the cameras to Wi-Fi, which allowed me to remotely monitor the house while in Colorado. I foresaw that a special scene would unfold in the house, but not with the participation of an adulterous couple, but with something else. When we were driving to the airport, Linda was friendly and sent goodbye to the girls, hugging them. I responded to her short caress and expressed my love for her, receiving a quick response in return. The trip to Colorado was uneventful. Emma and Sophia admired the beauty of the Rocky Mountains from the terrace of our rented apartment. After setting up the computer in the apartment, I connected to the Wi-Fi camera at home. As expected, Linda returned in the evening and immediately went to the bathroom. I watched her movements from cameras in the living room and kitchen and witnessed her stumbling down the stairs, likely encountering illegal substances. I thought about her discomfort and how it would affect Derek's expected visit. While the girls and I explored the Winter Park Center decorated for Christmas, we stopped at a pizzeria before heading back to the condo. On the way, the girls heard music coming from a nearby teen club and asked to go in for a while. Sympathizing with their recent experience, I allowed them to enter but stayed close to ensure their safety on their first night in a new city. Rather than leaving them unattended, I found an empty table away from the DJ and asked my daughters to check in with me periodically. This scheme allowed me to calmly read emails, knowing that the girls were having fun on the dance floor. They mingled with other children, dancing, laughing, and chatting, occasionally looking back at me as I raised my Diet Coke as a sign of confidence. Many parents were around, looking after their children. On the opposite side of the dance floor, a bright woman noticed me when we were both watching our children. Our eyes met, and we exchanged smiles. She had two boys who periodically came to her table for money, snacks, or drinks. At the same time, my girls seemed to spend more time with them than they did playing in other places. When I finished writing the message, I noticed an attractive woman walking towards me, attracting the attention of other men nearby. Her ski pants accentuated her figure, radiating warmth despite the cold weather. She introduced herself as Diane and said that her sons Alex and Daniel were about the same age as my girls. We laughed at this coincidence. Diane praised my daughters, noting how cute they were, and I reciprocated her words about her well-mannered boys. She laughed, acknowledging my observation and expressing gratitude for my attentive attitude towards my parents. Diane explained that she works from home and follows the daily routine of her boys, showing care and dedication. They attracted a lot of attention because they became the center of her life. It was the first day at Winter Park for Diane, her boys, and us. The teenagers quickly organized their skiing plans for the next morning, which forced Diane and me to coordinate our schedules. We decided to accompany the skiers in the morning, have breakfast together, and go to the slopes later. Throughout the week, Diane and I exchanged stories, found a common language, and established a connection. I told her about my problems with Linda and my intention to divorce her, keeping silent about the fact that I sought custody of the girls. Although I wasn't proud of what I'd done, I thought it was in the girls' best interests to be with me. Diane was left a widow after her husband's tragic death in a car accident, and we both tried to forgive those who changed our lives. On the last night, Diane and I had a private dinner, which ended with intimacy on the couch. When the week came to an end, we agreed that we needed to spend more time together, and this opinion was shared by all 4 teenagers. It was obvious that the time had come to end my marriage with Linda. When we returned, Linda looked tired, perhaps regretting not joining us in Colorado. I informed David to take care of the divorce paperwork because, after the events in Colorado, I no longer felt the need to monitor what was happening at home. The girls reacted predictably to the news of the divorce, acknowledging the deterioration of my relationship with Linda. Emma brought up the subject, wondering about the future for herself and Sophia. I reassured them by expressing my unwavering love and devotion to them, and secured full custody of both girls during the divorce proceedings. The 3 of us will continue to live in this house. You will study at the same school with your friends, and I will be here to cook for you and provide support. You can see your mother whenever you want. During the divorce process, you will have the right to choose who you want to live with. The parent who receives custody will also keep the house until you both go to college. Remember, this is your decision, but know that both Mom and I love you. For now, you will live in this house and attend your school. Don't feel pressured to decide who you want to live with. It's an important choice, and you have time to make it. I suggested we use my car and go to dinner so that Linda and I could talk in private and without interference. After making sure that the girls were busy, I checked my phone and realized that it was Linda who had repeatedly tried to call me. Instead of ignoring her calls, I dialed Linda's number. Her first words were full of anger and accusations. She vented her frustration until she paused to catch her breath. She asked why I made such a decision and why our love faded away, emphasizing her efforts for me and the girls. Suddenly, the call was interrupted by her arrival. When Linda burst into the house demanding answers, I calmly told her about her cheating with Derek Miller and that she preferred him to our family. I suggested that she pack up and move into a hotel while we sorted out the divorce process. I made it clear that she could see the girls and urged her to contact a lawyer to understand the terms of the divorce that I was offering. I retired to my office while she packed up, thinking about the end of our marriage and the need to move on separately. During the divorce process, she was furious. It wasn't that she still loved me and wanted to keep the family together. It seemed like she wanted to turn everyone against me, not the other way around. She wanted everyone to know that she was the one who kicked out the weak media consultant because he wasn't good enough for her, not that I kicked her out for cheating. She was professionally embarrassed that I had filed for divorce. None of us had any desire to attend marriage counseling. All the good things we had over the years had been squeezed out of us. I am very lucky that, unlike many other men, I was able to get a divorce first. Emma and Sophia decided that they wanted to live in the house with me. They saw their mother once a week or two. They didn't like her asking questions about me and if I missed her. I rarely talked to her, and I wasn't usually around when she picked up or dropped off the girls. Linda had become so involved in her advertising career that she didn't want to participate in her family life. She wanted to keep her 401k account and deferred compensation funds, which she thought I didn't know about. She has to pay for childcare, and the agency's health insurance is better than mine. I didn't want her to know that I knew about the dates at the Renaissance, as I planned to use that information later. Linda took out all the furniture she considered stylish from the house, leaving us 3 to sort out what was left of it. She left all the family photos as if we treated them as shrines dedicated to her. I'm sure she had other funds stashed away, but I didn't care. I needed my children and my business. They were my priority, and everything related to her faded into the background. Someone anonymously sent a video of Derek making love to Linda to Derek's wife. Of course, this caused an immediate increase in legal costs throughout the city. I was thinking about how they would interact, apart from their bedtime adventures. After the divorce, I invited Diane and her boys to my house for the weekend. Although we refrained from intimate relationships to set a positive example for our children, we exchanged kisses and hugs. Diane calmed me down, helping me move away from the tumultuous end of my marriage. We both understood the direction in which our relationship was developing. Diane had her own apartment, and we had no problems, but with 2 16-year-old children in our care, we focused on ensuring their well-being. Diane, a registered nurse who worked remotely for a health insurance company and studied medical claims, found the perfect office in my house. A year later, I shared with a friend from a CPA firm information that two high-ranking employees of the agency used corporate credit cards for illegal activities during working hours. After conducting an audit, the company raised this issue with the president of the agency, which led to the dismissal of employees. The agency decided not to initiate criminal proceedings, but informed its insurance company about the theft. As a result, the insurance company initiated a lawsuit against Linda and Derek for damages, which led to their dismissal and eviction from the luxury apartment. Derek faced financial problems compounded by upcoming commitments to his wife and children. Linda, who now works as a paralegal in the office of a divorce lawyer, gave valuable advice to her clients involved in the divorce process. Despite her professional competence, she was going through personal troubles, reflecting on her choice in a modest apartment. After consulting other people on divorce issues during the day, she showed no interest in successful businessmen and doctors whom she thought she should have married instead of me, perhaps because of the tragic end of her own marriage. The market value of my seemingly useless investments exceeded $2 million by the end of the year, hinting at a promising year ahead. Considering that my wedding to Diane was scheduled for mid-June, it seemed like a positive turn of events. Story 2. Brandon Taylor warned me that if I didn't water the plants soon, they would wither and die. I already knew this because everything my sister planted last spring died from lack of attention. The roses she had carefully placed under the windows had wilted, and I couldn't bring myself to water them. Sarah invested money and time in these flowers, hoping they would bring me joy and help me overcome depression, but I understood that these were just dreams. May these damn flowers wither as well as my wife's love for me, lifeless like my dear friend Mark Thompson. We laid Mark to rest today. Brandon and I performed at his funeral. Brandon's heartfelt eulogy moved everyone to tears. When it was my turn, I tried to tell some light-hearted stories from our life together. The three of us, Brandon, Mark, and I, created Midnight Mesa Blues. We were doing great in the region, constantly busy on weekends, and even had a decent crowd on weekdays. It was at this time that I met Rachel, a stunning blonde photographer who eventually became my wife. But when I was thinking about our relationship, a sudden realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Today is a year since the day I saw the pain in her eyes and heard those terrible words, "We need to talk." Did this day coincide with the anniversary of my best friend's funeral? As I quickly unscrewed the corks from 2 beer bottles, various thoughts raced through my head. Brandon took out a bottle of Crown Royal, poured 2 glasses, and raised his glass in a toast. "Salute," he said. I replied with salute, honoring our friend who was of Irish and German descent and a devoted Broncos fan. After we drank, we started sipping beer. Suddenly, Brandon noticed, "Hey, Tommy, your hand is bleeding." Looking down, I realized I had cut my finger while opening the beer bottles. Hastily grabbing a towel from the bar, I wrapped it around the wound and headed to the bathroom where our first aid kit was kept. As I unwrapped the towel, I noticed intricate embroidery with the inscription, "Tommy and Rachel, September 15th, 2008. You always love each other as much as on your wedding day." This beautiful inscription was a gift from her grandmother, who sewed and gave us a set of towels for the wedding. I realized that Rachel must have forgotten to pick them up when she took out the leftovers last year. When I came back from the bathroom, Brandon saw the look on my face. He offered to stay, but I refused, suggesting that he go home to his wife. I knew that spouses have a hard time these days. As he was leaving, I asked Brandon to hug Lisa and give her my love. His words made me think about how everything in my life had collapsed. Midnight Mesa Blues was playing in a cozy tavern in Denver when we performed in front of a lively audience. Our set list included a mix of covers and original tunes, demonstrating our love of classic blues and rock music. Mark kept the rhythm on drums, Brandon on bass guitar and keyboards, and I sang lead vocals, rattling the guitar, an amazing Les Paul signed by the legendary musician himself. It was originally supposed to be a decoration for my office, but Mr. Paul encouraged me to play it, and I am grateful for the opportunity to practice music on such a beautiful instrument. Beauty does come in many forms. There was a familiar blonde in the crowd who was present 6 weeks ago during our last performance in this bar. She was unmistakably recognizable, at least to me, tall with flowing blonde hair, a charming smile, and a stunning figure dressed in a tight t-shirt and skinny jeans. That evening, I decided to do something we did only on rare occasions, and only when a lady with a perfect physique and dancing skills was present in the hall. Do you remember that iconic moment in Bruce Springsteen's Dancing in the Dark video when he pulls Courtney Cox onto the stage so she can dance with him? I had a similar experience while we were performing a Springsteen song. I invited the blonde from the audience to join us. She danced, we played, and the crowd went wild. After the performance, she was still at the bar, obviously waiting for me. It was clear that she had caught my attention without having to openly declare it. Brandon and Mark kindly allowed me to take a break from packing equipment, since there are no egos in the small business of the rock scene. I took this opportunity to go to the bar and make a new acquaintance. After a short conversation, she gave me her phone number and left, leaving me captivated by her figure and tight jeans. A few weeks later, the band had another concert scheduled at one of Denver's clubs. I contacted Rachel and asked if she was available for a date on Friday before our performance on Saturday. To my delight, she agreed. I arranged for us to have lunch at a prestigious restaurant and attend a performance by the University Symphony Orchestra. When I pulled up to Rachel's house, she greeted me looking amazing in an exquisite black dress and heels. I felt relieved that I had changed into a smart sports jacket and put my appearance in order. Our conversation at dinner was casual. We shared our interests and preferences. Rachel held my hand during the concert and assured me that I had made the right decision. Beethoven was her favorite composer, and the Third Symphony was one of her 2 favorites. She was shocked that a blues rock guitarist chose to perform this symphony. I confessed that I took violin lessons for 8 years as a child and played in the chamber orchestra of our high school for 4 years. I also admitted that I picked up a guitar because, as a teenager, I noticed that girls preferred guitarists to concert violinists. Rachel burst out laughing at my confession. I decided to invite Rachel into the quiet living room for a drink before heading to her house. As we stood at her door, I expressed my appreciation for her company and asked if she would be at the tavern on Saturday. Then I asked if she would be free to have a cup of coffee after my performance. Unfortunately, Rachel had plans for the next evening, and she felt it would be unfair to cancel at the last minute. She apologized, saying that she had a wonderful evening with me, but believed we needed to be honest and stick to our previous commitments. She hoped we would have another opportunity to talk soon. I was disappointed with how things turned out. It was really one of the most enjoyable evenings in recent times. I felt a real connection with her, but chose to remain silent, so as not to spoil the good time with negativity. I kissed her briefly goodbye and left. The next night, I tried not to let my disappointment affect our performance, but I felt that there was not enough energy. The audience seemed uninterested, and we ended our concert without an encore, leaving the stage by 11 p.m. After loading the equipment into the truck, I couldn't help feeling disappointed. Trying to get rid of the frustration, I decided to hit the road. That decision quickly backfired when I walked out of a local coffee shop and noticed Rachel with a guy coming out of a jazz club across the street. The man seemed familiar to me, most likely an athlete judging by his height and build. They seemed very close, so close that Rachel didn't even notice my presence. I sat at a table on the sidewalk and watched them walk around the block. I had no intention of following them, nor was it necessary. They walked only a short distance before entering a charming apartment building. While I sat sipping coffee and indulging in self-pity, I eventually went down to the building and looked at the list of names next to the call buttons. One name in particular stood out: C. Williams. Suddenly, it dawned on me why he seemed so familiar. Charles, or Charlie Williams, as he was more often called, was a star quarterback who was drafted by the Denver Broncos after graduating from high school in Colorado. The building in the business district was quite luxurious for a student like Charlie. It seemed that either generous alumni were pampering him, or he had already splurged his substantial signing bonus. I didn't wait to find out if Rachel had stayed the night. Instead, I did what any self-respecting guy would do. I went to the bar late at night, ordered a double shot of whiskey, met a girl who knew rock stars, and brought her to my room to spend a wild night of passion. The next morning, I got in the car and headed home, determined to put Rachel out of my mind. I had been half expecting a call from her for a week, so I was stunned when it didn't come. I didn't know that Rachel's younger sister, Amy, a rebellious 16-year-old, tragically died on the New York subway that Sunday. It was later revealed that Amy was the victim of an overdose, abandoned by her terrified friends. The news of this grave family loss reached me much later. While Rachel was struggling with her personal family problems, I ignored it, believing she had found solace in a relationship with a rich athlete. I threw myself into my work and music, focusing on the success of our band. Our popularity grew, which led to an increase in the number of concerts in the Phoenix area and a reduction in trips to Colorado. Rachel faded into the background, becoming a distant memory. But one evening, while performing at a club on Mill Avenue, I suddenly noticed Rachel in the crowd. Since she wasn't paying attention to me at the time, I quickly looked away. When the opportunity presented itself, I informed Brandon and Mark that I would be changing the playlist, and we started with Dancing in the Dark. Instead of inviting Rachel to join us on stage, my attention was caught by a stunning blonde in the crowd whom I invited to come over. I tried to start a flirtatious conversation with the blonde as she tried to radiate attractiveness. Although she wasn't without charm, she just wasn't Rachel. When the song came to an end, I surveyed the audience once more, but Rachel was absent. My little act of revenge seemed to work, but I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. Deciding to take a chance, I scrolled through my contacts and found her number. I sent a message on Monday morning. Brandon mentioned that he saw you on Saturday. Why didn't you say hello? 10 minutes later, she answered. You looked worried. I didn't want to get in the way. Are you around somewhere? Do you want to have a coffee? I work in the administration of Phoenix General with a flexible schedule. Let me know the time that suits you. How about we meet for lunch at Tony's at noon? From that moment, our relationship began. Over lunch, Rachel shared with me the reason for her sudden absence. The week before, her sister had died. When she asked why I hadn't contacted her, I made a weak excuse that I was overworked that week and suggested that she had other priorities since she hadn't contacted me. Charlie Williams's name didn't come up in our conversation. I didn't mention it because it would most likely put me in a negative light. Was I following her? By accident, I didn't think so, but how would she take it? It wasn't the best way to make an acquaintance. There were a few white lies and subtle courtship on my part, and her words remained unsaid. Considering that our lunch went well, I invited her to join me on Thursday at the Symphony Orchestra. Midori was supposed to perform Dvorak's Violin Concerto, and I had great seats for this event. After Rachel agreed to go on a date with me, we quickly became a couple, but it took several weeks before our physical relationship began to develop. One Sunday afternoon, after a shopping trip on Central Avenue, Rachel asked for some time for herself and disappeared into Victoria's Secret. Later, we had a light dinner at her house, after which she came out of her bedroom in a transparent blouse and thong panties, leading me by the hand into her bedroom. She dimmed the lights and lit a few candles to create a romantic atmosphere. Rachel slowly took off my clothes until I was completely naked in front of her. Our intimacy grew over the weekend and continued into the following days and nights as we spent more and more time together. Rachel and I realized that there was more to us than just a physical connection. We both loved music and had similar interests. Despite the strong bond, we faced difficulties, especially with my commitment to the band. I combined my work as a systems analyst with band rehearsals and weekend performances, so we had less time to be together. Rachel expressed concerns about fans and trust, although she assured me of her faith in our relationship. Despite the difficulties we faced, we managed to get engaged just a few months after making an exclusive decision. I proposed one summer evening right after the fantastic symphony concert in Central Park. Rachel replied, yes, surrounded by kisses, and I booked a lovely room downtown for the occasion. We celebrated our engagement in a room overlooking the park, with the curtains open. After making love, we went to bed together, her head resting on my chest, and she looked at me with her beautiful blue eyes. "I like your touch," I told her, realizing that I wanted to spend the rest of my life exploring her body. I felt like I was in heaven. However, 6 weeks later, when the Broncos came to Phoenix to play the Cardinals in a preseason game, things changed. On the Thursday before the game, Rachel was unusually quiet during dinner. Worse, she made up an excuse to meet with her colleagues for a drink on Friday night after work. Alarm bells rang in my head, and it was like light bulbs turned on. Rachel arrived around 10 p.m., still maintaining a calm demeanor. After she fell asleep, I came across her panties and decided to smell them. Fortunately, I did not detect any unpleasant odors or signs of increased arousal, which calmed me down. Despite this, I did not lose my vigilance until the end of the weekend. My relief only increased when I looked at her email while she was still asleep. I found a message from Charlie asking for a meeting before he leaves town with the team, but Rachel's reply made it clear that their relationship was over. She had made the difficult decision to break off her engagement with her beloved fiancé and agreed to meet with him personally on Friday to break the news. She asked that he never contact her again. 3 weeks later, a life-changing event occurred. Midnight Mesa Blues was performing at a busy dive bar in Tempe when a group of 5 or 6 motorcyclists from Scottsdale pulled up. The band had just finished their second set when a riot broke out in the back of the bar, attracting the attention of most of the patrons. In my haste to get a beer, I turned my back on the commotion. Suddenly, I heard a distinct clicking sound behind me. Before I could react, I felt a sharp pain in my arm and heard an unfamiliar noise. It turned out that the click was the sound of a knife being opened by one of the bikers who, for unknown reasons, wanted to stab me in the back. In a split second, Brandon swung his bass guitar and hit the biker, preventing the knife attack. Brandon's punch was strong enough to deflect the knife from its intended target. Although the cut on my arm wasn't serious, I had to get 12 stitches in the emergency room. Rachel had reached her limit. I had to make a choice: stay in the band or jeopardize our upcoming wedding. The biker never revealed his motives for targeting me, but he was eventually sentenced to 5 years in prison on various charges related to the incident. The whole situation made me feel awkward and anxious. It seemed like it was all set up to give me some kind of message, or maybe I was just being paranoid. It was only years later that I found out the truth. The band had a number of upcoming shows that could not be canceled without serious financial consequences, so we called these last 6 shows the Goodbye Midnight Mesa Blues Tour. With that, I said goodbye to the band, rushing into the future with Rachel. We got married, bought a house, renovated it, and turned it into our little hideaway. After enjoying marital bliss for more than 2 years, our marital harmony changed for the worse. Rachel felt stagnant at her job with little hope of advancement in the near future. In her early 30s, she wanted to wait a few more years before starting a family and focus on building a successful career. Despite tirelessly applying to all the hospitals in the area, no opportunities appeared until one of the job hunters presented her with a promising offer. St. Mary's Children's Hospital in Austin expressed interest in Rachel. We discussed for a long time the possibility that I would also look for a job in Austin, realizing that it might take time before a suitable vacancy in my field appeared. Would our marriage be able to withstand separation for a long time? After all, other couples had coped with this. Why couldn't we? In the end, Rachel was interviewed and received a lucrative offer, which made us make the difficult decision to temporarily live in different cities. But our plans ran into an obstacle which, in the end, turned out to be insurmountable. 2 weeks after Rachel moved to Austin, Charlie Williams was traded from the Broncos to the Cowboys. Despite the great distance separating Dallas and Austin, I could have taken more initiative, maybe even quit my job and moved closer to Rachel. But instead, I let events unfold that eventually led to the collapse of my marriage. I believed that distance would be an obstacle for Charlie in his pursuit of Rachel, while he saw no obstacle in it. Something unexpected happened during our separation. I received an email from Rachel's college friend, Tommy, who informed me about a site he had stumbled upon. At first, I took the girl in the video for young Rachel, but soon realized that it was actually her sister. Not knowing how to contact Rachel about this, I turned to Tommy for help, so that he would delete the contents of the site. There was a link to the website in the email, and after some hesitation, I clicked on it. Although I had never met Amy, I recognized her from the photos. The young woman in the video was undoubtedly her. I decided not to watch the rest of the video, as it seemed disturbing to me, but I needed a family member who had access to her birth certificate to contact the site and ask for the video to be deleted. Rachel was shocked when I informed her of the situation. She quickly deleted the video to spare her parents any further worries about their daughter's behavior. Unfortunately, this incident marked the beginning of a deterioration in our relationship. I thought that when we lived together again, we would get back together. I sent out several resumes to Austin companies, hoping to get job offers. When Charlie found out from mutual friends that Rachel was living alone in Austin, he started his campaign. I do not know all the details, but I know the result. In the third month of our separation, I flew to Austin for an interview. Rachel met me at the airport, and it was clear that something was wrong. Despite the tension, the interview went smoothly, and I was offered a position. I took a taxi to Rachel's apartment, and as soon as I entered, I was greeted by a gloomy tone. Rachel uttered those heartbreaking words, "Darling, we need to talk." Reflecting on my own problems with depression after our divorce, I realized that a lot of it had to do with my inability to be completely honest with Rachel. It had always been difficult for me to bring up the topic of her relationship with Charlie, a famous professional football player. Despite my physique, athletic build, and decent appearance, I couldn't help feeling inadequate when it came to Rachel and her superstar beau. How could any man compare to a millionaire who is strong enough to play professional football? I may have made a mistake by not addressing an obvious problem. I needed to acknowledge the difficulties Rachel faced in a relationship with Charlie and openly address them. A year later, I found myself sinking deeper into despair as my marriage continued to crumble. I declined a job offer from a company in Austin and decided to stay in Phoenix. Rachel and I went through a divorce, and eventually, she moved in with Charlie. Tragically, Mark was hit by a drunk driver while riding his motorcycle from work. The past year seemed to drag on endlessly. It's strange that time speeds up when everything is going well but slows down in difficult times. It just feels wrong. But a month after the memorial service for Mark, one positive event occurred. Brandon found himself in a fortunate position when the guitarist of a local blues band in which he played bass guitar was arrested for trafficking illegal substances during recording. Brandon saw an opportunity and offered his services to band leader John Wilson. John, who was familiar with Brandon's playing, decided to give him a chance and invited him to audition. Impressed by Brandon's skill, John asked him to take time off from work to help the band record a CD. During the recording, Brandon suggested trying to use an electric violin in one of the tracks. The band and the producer liked the idea, and the track with the violin made it onto the disc. Feeling a new surge of optimism, Brandon began to attract all the good things to himself. At a dinner party hosted by his sister Sarah, Brandon met Jennifer Foster, a woman from Sarah's job. Jennifer was like a breath of fresh air to Brandon, and their meeting marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. During dinner, I sat next to my sister, who was not easily deceived. I may have monopolized her time by being rude to other guests, but in fact, they were glad to see me in a good mood for once. It was a reminder of how wonderful my friends are. Getting to know the pretty brunette sitting across from me, I paid attention not only to her appearance, her brown eyes, bright smile, and athletic physique hidden under a conservative dress, but all of this intrigued me. She was 24 years old and had recently completed an MBA in finance. The year before, she had worked with my sister and greatly appreciated her mentoring. Most importantly, she was not married. Before the evening was over, I plucked up the courage to invite her out the following weekend. To my surprise, she agreed to a date the following Saturday night. This one date turned into many others, each better than the last. I won't bore you with the details, but I'll just say that everything was going well. After 2 months of our relationship, I decided it was time to introduce Jennifer to my family. In response, she introduced me to her conservative Catholic parents from a small town in Nevada. That weekend, I attended Sunday Mass for the first time since graduating from school. Spending time with Jennifer's family taught me more about her than she ever told me. Her parents glowed with pride as they talked about her achievements. She was valedictorian, prom queen, and captain of the volleyball team in high school. She even received a full scholarship to Arizona State and graduated from college with honors. Despite the fact that our physical relationship was limited so far, Jennifer wanted to take things slow. When I listened to her parents talk about her achievements, I realized how special she really was. She made it clear that she would not continue a physical relationship with me until she was convinced that our feelings ran deeper than just infatuation. Despite the complexity of the situation, I admired her enough to respect her boundaries. During our trip from her parents' house, she patiently answered all my questions and talked about her past. I found out that she had only been in serious relationships with 2 men, the last of which lasted 3 years while she was in college. She was aware of her uniqueness compared to other women of her generation, but accepted it. She understood that some men lost interest in her after a few dates because she refused to meet their expectations, and that was something she appreciated. She appreciated that I respected her and allowed her to be herself. I confessed to her that it was difficult for me to give up the physical intimacy I wanted in our relationship, but I assured her of my love for her. When I first said that word in her presence, I couldn't help but hope that it would lead to something more than just kissing between us. As we sped down the freeway, Jennifer responded with a firm kiss on my cheek. It seemed like the perfect moment to take our relationship to the next level, but unfortunately, the next morning Jennifer had an early flight at 6:30 a.m., and she needed to pack her things and get some rest. I didn't want to rush things, so I took her back to her apartment where I hugged her tightly before saying goodbye. After kissing her goodbye, I realized it would be a long week until she returned home on Friday. We agreed that I would pick her up from Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport and have dinner at our favorite restaurant. But as the days passed, I couldn't ignore the news about my ex-wife's life. The sports pages were full of reports about Charlie Williams' problems. He was released from the Cowboys for a failed doping test and arrested the same evening for assaulting his girlfriend. It was a disturbing development for poor old Charlie, and I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. The victim's name was not mentioned in the newspapers, but Charlie was arrested for hitting his roommate and ended up in prison. I can't help but feel for Rachel, even though she left me for Charlie. No one deserves to be physically attacked by their partner. My bond with Jennifer became so strong that by Friday, I was barely thinking about Rachel's situation. When I saw Jennifer at the baggage carousel with a dozen red roses in her hands, she almost knocked the roses out of my hands by jumping into my arms and showering me with affection. We settled down on the couch, enjoying each other's company and the comfort of being together. Jennifer's smile lit up the room as we shared stories and laughed together. It was a perfect evening filled with warmth and happiness, and when we embraced each other, I realized that this was where I was destined to be, in Jennifer's arms, surrounded by her love. Jennifer wasted no time in getting down to business. "Take me to bed, Tommy. I want to be close to you tonight," she said, her voice full of desire, and that's exactly what we did. We took our time, savoring every moment as I undressed her, a smile playing on my face. "What's amusing?" Jennifer asked, looking puzzled. "It's not funny," I assure her. "I'm smiling because you have a beautiful body, and I've been longing to see it since that night. Now that I finally can, I'm torn between simply admiring it and holding you close. It's hard to do both at once." "Let's make love," she whispered, her words sending shivers down my spine. So we did, our bodies entwined in passion, losing ourselves in each other's embrace. When we fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, I couldn't help but admire the beauty lying next to me. When I woke up the next morning, I saw Jennifer looking at me with confusion. It was the first time in my life that I had slept naked, but the feeling was exhilarating. "What do you want to do today?" I asked, hoping we could spend the whole weekend together. "Let's go to the park," she suggested, and I couldn't think of a more perfect way to spend the day. After a week of traveling, I really need a run. You'll probably overtake me easily. Let's run together until you get tired, as usual. I agreed, and then we can try different exercises tonight. I'll go home to get some gear and clothes in case we spend the weekend here. Jennifer left soon after, refusing my offer of a ride. She chose to take a taxi to her house and return a couple of hours later. After spending the next hour doing typical household chores, I wanted the house to look perfect by the time Jennifer returned. Just an hour after she left, the doorbell rang, and I was overcome with excitement. Jennifer must have really wanted to get back earlier than expected. When I opened the door, I was met with an unexpected sight. "Hello, Rachel." "Hi, Tommy. Can I come in?" Rachel, as stunning as ever, stood in front of me. All I had to do was nod and step aside to let her in. She entered the house for the first time since collecting her personal belongings almost a year and a half ago. When I closed the door, Rachel clung to me tightly. "Tommy, I felt really bad, and I'm really sorry. I understand. I love you, and I want us to be together again. I want to be your wife again." As a child, Catherine Foster always aspired to be a good girl, one that parents could honorably call their daughter. That's why when she learned from school friends about an actress named Katie Foster, she immediately forbade anyone to call her Katie. From that day on, she was called Jennifer. Convincing her father was the hardest task, but after he finally relented and she told him the reason, they both blushed. Her father never called her Katie again. Jennifer has always been a good girl and has only dated 2 men in her entire life. The first was her high school boyfriend, with whom she lost her virginity at prom. Instead of going to a late-night party, Jeffrey booked a hotel room in the city, and they spent a pleasant evening awkwardly losing their virginity. The other man was the one she dated for 3 years in college. Although their lovemaking was satisfying, she couldn't figure out what all the fuss was about. There were several reasons for her doubts. Now Jennifer realized that Howard was shallow, especially compared to Jeffrey or Tommy. Unlike Tommy, Howard had never tried to please her the way Tommy had the night before. Her first experience with Tommy surpassed anything she had experienced in her 3 years of relationship with Howard. When Jennifer left Tommy's house the next morning, thoughts of their future wedding occupied her mind. She was grateful that they hadn't become intimate until she was convinced of her love for Tommy and sure that he felt the same way. Last night had surpassed all her hopes and dreams. She had originally intended to wait until the end of the business trip to enter into a physical relationship with Tommy, but the anticipation made the trip painfully slow. What she didn't expect was the joy and satisfaction she experienced during their intimate encounter. After spending an hour in the bathtub, completely undressed, lying next to him, entwining their bodies was an exhilarating feeling for Jennifer. She had always hidden her sensuality, but now she felt alive and free. As she entered her apartment, she casually threw her work clothes on the bed. Moving quickly around the room, she gathered sports equipment and casual outfits for the next few days. Reaching for her pajamas, she hesitated, smiling. She decided there was no need for them. She felt liberated today. In her haste, Jennifer quickly watered the houseplants, then picked up her suitcase and headed to the car. She drove to Tommy's house, faithfully observing the speed limit and not running a red light. But when she turned onto Tommy's street, her joy was abruptly cut short by a heartbreaking sight: a red Honda with Texas license plates parked in the driveway. Without thinking, Jennifer continued to move. Instead of smiling, tears flowed down her face as Jennifer passed Tommy's house. She noticed Tommy and Rachel deep in conversation. Tommy shared his emotions as he looked at Rachel, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger. Despite the black eye, Rachel still looked great. "Tell me why, Rachel. Tell me why you left me for the man who hurt you," Tommy asked. He expressed his disappointment about the Amy video that Rachel showed him and admitted that he had blamed her for it. After reflecting on the situation, Tommy realized that his reaction stemmed from his own insecurities and unresolved problems with his sister. He transferred his guilt to Rachel, feeling that he could not help his sister when Charlie's friend stepped in and made suggestions about his actions. Tommy had doubts about their relationship after Charlie's words shattered his trust, making him doubt whether their relationship had any foundation. "I heard that a gang member attacked you because you were involved with his girlfriend," Rachel continued. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in a Pulp Fiction movie. Finally, I interrupted her and said, "Wait, I want to show you something." Tommy took 2 files out of his office and handed Rachel a printout of a letter from Jason Taylor. detailing the information he had shared with him about the video. I have saved a copy of this letter in case I need proof that I have not viewed prohibited content. Interestingly, Jason mentioned his old friend who gave him the website address. When I saw Jason last year, he mentioned that his friend was Charlie Williams. Rachel was shocked, but Tommy continued the conversation. I also received a report from a private investigator I hired after talking to Jason. It seemed to have inconsistencies with the biker who tried to stab me that night. Feel free to review the statement you received from a gang member who was present at the bar that evening. I, Samuel Davis, a private investigator working for Tommy Newman, interviewed Daniel Rodriguez, a member of the Desert Wolves motorcycle gang located in Scottsdale. In exchange for $1,500, Mr. Rodriguez disclosed the following information, although he insisted he would not share this information with law enforcement. Mr. Rodriguez confirmed that Charlie Williams had paid him and his gang mates. The gang offered $75,000 to eliminate Tommy Newman, but the choice of Joseph Burns for this job turned out to be a mistake. This was supposed to be part of Burns's initiation into the gang. The plan was simple: to cause riots in the club where Newman's band was performing, and Burns, taking advantage of the chaos, was to fatally wound Newman. But the plan failed when Brandon Taylor, the bass guitarist, reacted quickly and prevented Burns from carrying out his plan. Rachel closed the book she was reading and turned to Tommy, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never understood why your boyfriend didn't try again." I listened while she explained. "It happened when Charlie started dating that hip-hop star. He must have forgotten about me for a while until she dumped him after he was traded to the Cowboys. That's when he came back to me. I was stupid enough to answer his calls. When he said he needed a friend, he used our friendship to ruin our marriage, and I let him do it. Can you forgive me? Can I please come home? I love you." Tommy looked at Rachel, the woman he adored. He realized that she needed his forgiveness and love more than ever. He reached out to her, knowing that they could rebuild what had been destroyed. My heart and soul begged me to take a step forward and become the friend, lover, and man who could forgive her mistake when she broke our vows and chose another man. As she stood in front of him, her sundress unbuttoned at the top, exposing her perfect breasts, he couldn't resist the temptation. Pulling her to him, he wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "I forgive you, Rachel," then kissed her gently on the forehead. Rachel looked at him with unwavering hope shining in her stunning blue eyes. "I forgive you," she said sincerely. "I wish you success in your future endeavors, but maybe one day you'll realize that love is not just a tool for manipulating others. I'm not saying this to hurt you, but because I'm deeply in love with the incredible woman I plan to marry. She's my support system in this chaotic world and brought me back from the edge. I can't betray her trust by being there for you when you need me. I want to ensure your safety, so I urge you not to return to Charlie, just as it took me a while to find myself and heal. I hope you will have to do the same, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I wish you only the best." Rachel had reached a breaking point. She was lying on the couch, shaking and crying until I finally called her parents. They came, and I said I forgave her for leaving me for an unworthy man, but I couldn't take her back. Fortunately, her parents were sympathetic to this. They hugged her warmly and took her to their home. After Rachel left with her parents, I looked at my watch and realized it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Jennifer was supposed to arrive a few hours ago. I quickly dialed her number and waited anxiously for her to pick up the phone. The seconds seemed like an eternity. Jennifer finally picked up the phone, but her voice sounded distant. I asked if I could pick her up so we could go to the mall together. I needed her help choosing a gift for a special friend. Jennifer hesitated but eventually agreed. I drove up to her house, and she got out, joining me in the car. We arrived at the mall 20 minutes before it closed. I took her to a jewelry store where she looked confused. Suddenly, I got down on one knee and asked her to choose a ring and marry me. Jennifer felt her knees buckle, hugged me tightly, and kissed me passionately as if it was the first time. After spending another 5 minutes on our knees, we finally got up. She chose a simple design with a half-carat diamond, but I asked the saleswoman to replace it with a full carat and said I would pick it up the next day. During our engagement, I went on a 2-month tour with John Wilson's band, which helped me get rid of the habit of traveling. Despite being surrounded by female fans, I did not engage in extramarital affairs, but my love for music remained strong. After the wedding, Jennifer and I moved to Atlanta, where I now work full-time in systems development. This gives me the opportunity to work as a session guitarist and violinist for a few hours every month. It also allows me to devote enough time to be a proud and loving father to our 3 children, whom Jennifer and I consider fortunate. However, at our wedding, her father approached her and asked if he could call her Katie again, now that her last name was Newman. The sweetest woman I know couldn't hold back her tears when she gave him permission. Even after all these years, I'm still humming that stupid Dean Martin song. How lucky can one person be? I kissed her, and she kissed me.